Hello world, greetings. My name is Hannah Elliott Spence. I was born on June 7th, 1982 in a small town called Winslow, Maine. The deeper significance of that town's name being that we win slow. I win slow over the long term. I was born at home with a midwife, something for which I am eternally grateful to my parents for. I was the only child born in 1982 in the town of Winslow. I was the only birth certificate issued to my parents for my birth. Fact that could be insignificant, but this is mainly to share with you all who I am, fully transparent, so that anyone who wants to look into me, my background, who I am, whether what I'm saying is true, can do the research on their own. I'm willing to be 100% transparent in the support of truth, in the struggle for truth, in a time where humanity is faced with an important choice, whether to embrace our DNA, embrace what's special about us, our soul, our connection to God, source, love, creator, or to follow a path of transhumanism. But this is not about me. This is about the larger goal. This is about the greater good. This is about being in service to the highest good for all. An alignment which I aim to stay connected to at all times. So, back to my story, who I am, where I came from. Born at home, I came into this world very smoothly. My mom had a very short labor. She gave birth to me while she was standing, and I literally came through the air, and her friend Maura caught me. And I was ready to be here 100%. I'm still ready to be here 100%. My parents had a teepee set up on the front lawn. They were converting a camp to a home with a wood stove and putting on walls and ceilings, and my dad and his friends doing the work to upgrade this camp into a family home. At the time, the town of Winslow was continuously fighting my parents for wanting to live there on this beautiful parcel of 40 acres next to a lake with streams and marshes, pine trees, snow in the winter, birds, the bees, all the beautiful nature that a child could ask for. My siblings and I are very grateful that our parents had the wisdom to give us this foundation of our childhood. It was absolutely beautiful environment. I spent my days climbing apple trees, picking the pears or the plums, however few would ripen on the trees, with wild apples, chewing wintergreen, chewing clover, sucking the nectar from honeysuckle. My friends were caterpillars, my friends were the squirrels and all of the wild animals, the raccoons, the porcupines. There were not other children there, and occasionally I would think, gosh, it might be nice to play with other kids, but then I just went back to playing in nature and being completely one with nature. And it was truly a paradise. And as an infant, my mother tells stories of how they had a teepee set up on the front lawn, and they would put me as a baby in the teepee and to take my naps while they were working on the house. And this, I feel, is deeply connected to my ancestry of having Native American roots, Native American genetics in my blood. Cree, Blackfoot, Ute, Algonquin. I always embraced this part of my ancestry more than the others. I was always most curious and embraced this part of my beingness the most, and was curious about this, asking my grandfather to share information that he had about this ancestry, and perhaps my parents knew by putting me in the teepee somehow that it was important for me to connect with my indigenous blood, to connect with nature, to find harmony with nature. I want to pause on talking about myself and connect my ancestry, my lineage. So my last name, Spence, is a Scottish clan from the Orkney Islands. It's also deeply connected to the Sinclairs and the Stuarts, and tracing my lineage all the way back to that Scottish ancestor who came over from the Orkneys. His name was Archibald Stuart Spence. He was born in Herray, Harray. Now, he was recruited with others from the Orkney Islands by the Hudson Bay Company to come to Canada, to the Hudson Bay, to be fur trappers and to work with the land. Now, he landed at the Red River Colony in a town called Severn, Severn. He married a woman named Margaret Peggy. I'm sure that's not her birth name or her indigenous name, obviously. They had about 8 children. I have the information. I'm working on getting the information from my grandparents, all of the specific details of this. But Archibald Stuart Spence left the Orkneys, came to Canada, married Peggy, a full-blooded Cree. They had about 8 children, one of which is my direct ancestor. And they eventually traveled west. They were promised land and houses, farmable land. They were promised a settlement in Oregon, which when they arrived, they were dismayed to find that none of what they were promised was actually there. And Archibald Stuart Spence died mining for gold in California, and I believe was the Yuba River, tributary of the Yuba River, about maybe a couple hundred miles south of Mount Shasta in Northern California. So back to my story. I went to kindergarten. I went to a nursery school first, what some might call preschool. I had a wonderful teacher there, Miss Alice. I made friends. We played dress up. We played make-believe. I learned math for the first time. I had a math worksheet and loved it, absolutely loved it. I understood immediately the concepts, and it was problem solving, puzzled, a game, and I knew it was something that I was good at. And for the first time I encountered academics, and I thrived with the joy of learning and discovery and problem solving, and feeling my brain blossom and grow with these new ideas and concepts, so simple as addition and subtraction. And from there, next, of course, was kindergarten, and I took the bus on the long road. We were the first ones that the bus picked up early in the morning, and took the long road into town where I got dropped off for kindergarten, and I think it was half day. My teacher was Mrs. Dial at Grand Street School in Winslow. It's no longer there. And that was my introduction to the American public school system. But it was still relatively dreamlike. We helped chickens hatch from eggs under the glow of the warm lamps. We learned the alphabet and sounds and sang songs, and I remember making art at Thanksgiving and Christmas, and making ornaments at Christmas time, and engaging in all the wonderful activities that young children do. And from there, of course, I moved to first grade, and this is where I remember things started to be a little bit more strange. I remember being in the cafeteria with the plastic tray and seeing the industrial food and the industrial meat and the canned vegetables, and feeling it was a very robotic, mechanical type environment, and with the milk at break time, and the packets of fluoride that they called swish, which they instructed us to swish around in our mouth and then spit back out into the packet, and then they collected the packets. Now, it was the same year. Again, first grade, I like providing details for you all in case anyone wants to check the veracity and the truth of this. Everything I'm saying is 100% true. And these details can be checked with others, my parents, school records, anyone who has access to this information. My teacher was Mrs. Bickford. And in the fall of that year, I was age 6, and we were given an opportunity to write a book. And I chose to write a book about a fun adventure with aliens. Because at that point, I had already reasoned with myself that, time and space, well, science in this world, in this realm, seems to be based on time and space being concrete and fixed time and fixed space. But I asked myself, well, if time is fixed and there's boundaries of start of time and the end of time, well, doesn't there have to be something beyond the boundary? And the same with space. If there's an edge of space, doesn't there have to be something beyond that boundary? Does it go on infinitely? Why aren't people talking about this? Why are people acting like time and space are fixed when I would think of the concept of infinity and try to understand that, and the concept of things being fixed? And I thought to myself, something here doesn't add up. And I reasoned that, all these things they act like are make-believe, witches and ghosts and vampires and werewolves and aliens, I think maybe all of that might be real, and magic and all of these things, because time and space, science is not talking about. They're acting like time and space is fixed, but it didn't make sense in my brain. So I had the idea to write a book, and I thought, aliens are probably real, and I'm going to write a fun adventure. I'm going to write a book about a fun adventure with aliens so that other children are not afraid of aliens. And I called the book The Space Dragon. And it's about a girl who is just walking, walking around, minding her own business, when a man says, "Come here, come with me." And I thought, well, gosh, I know I'm not supposed to go with strangers, but I don't think anything dangerous will happen. And I went with this man, and he brought me to a tree, and I didn't see anything. And he sort of shrugged and said, "Gosh, humans and their eyes." And I walked into what seemed like an invisible space, and all of a sudden I was aboard a spacecraft. And aboard this spacecraft was a cage with a being. Again, the title of the book is The Space Dragon. And the being in this cage, by the way, I have this book somewhere. I will locate it. I have all of the content. My mother and my first grade teacher can confirm that I wrote the book 100% at the age of 6. So I'm aboard the spacecraft in the book, and there's this space dragon, and he's changing colors in front of my eyes. And, he changes different colors of the rainbow. And I thought, wow, if I could only show the kids at school what he's doing, just imagine the look on their face. And I have a conversation with this space dragon who's in a cage, essentially on the spaceship. And he gives me a stone that changes colors. It glows in the dark, and it's some kind of magical stone. And I think, wow, okay, I can bring this back and show the kids at school. Now, then I go back to speaking with the other extraterrestrial who had brought me aboard the ship, who looks very much like a human. He's very stern. He's basically bald or with very short white hair. And I'm talking about the space dragon. He says, "Oh no, you don't understand. Space dragons are very dangerous. They camouflage themselves so they can attack humans. There's nothing special about them." And he says they eat giggleberries. And I said, giggleberry? What's a giggleberry? Do they make you laugh when you eat them? And he said, they're very expensive. They're 2 googles a pound. Gugle. Now keep in mind, this was 1988. I was born in 1982. I was 6 years old in first grade. 1988, before anyone had ever heard of Google or knew what Google was. So he tells me they eat giggleberries. They're very expensive. They cost 2 googles a pound. I say, what's a giggleberry? Do they make you laugh when you eat them? So basically he's educating me that they are dangerous, that they want to attack humans. There's nothing special about them. The significance of this will all reveal itself later through further content that I share. Now, I forgot about the book. Somehow my mother kept it and sent it to me years later. So I have the content of the book in a secure location with the picture of the cover, all of which is very relevant. The cover of the book, by the way, I'm on the spaceship, and the human-like extraterrestrial who's very stern with me, who's educating me about these space dragons, is operating the ship, and I'm facing the cover, I'm facing the audience with my hand over my mouth, indicating I can't say anything. This is a secret. And if I were to say anything, no one would probably believe me at the time. Now, back to my childhood and my story. So I write the book in first grade. It gets published. They laminate the cover. They print it for us. And wonderful. Great. I'm moving on through my childhood. I joined Girl Scouts. I was always getting hurt. I was always going to the doctor. For example, in Girl Scouts, it was a Christmas party, and we played a game where the girls lined up one behind another, and one group of girls walked forward while the other group of girls walked behind them. And then at some point, the girls behind tapped on their shoulder and turned around to run. Now, I was in the group of girls that turned around to run. And when I turned around to run in that instance, I felt someone trip me, and I slammed my head right here, the scar, on one of the industrial metal particle board desks. Bam. And I don't remember feeling any pain, but there was blood everywhere. Of course, my parents were called. They brought me to the nurse. They gave me ice, and she was singing a song to comfort me, probably to comfort herself more, because I felt fine. They brought me to the local hospital in Waterville, Maine. Waterville Family Practice was the name, where they gave me stitches, and they gave me an injection, a shot. But at the time, and always through my childhood, I for whatever reason, I was very proud of my capacity to handle extreme pain without crying. And I would let it build like a knot in my throat, and I would resist crying. I would handle large amounts of pain, and I was very proud of myself for that. So they stitched me up and eventually went back to remove the stitches, and I've had the scar my whole life. But I was always the one getting hurt. My brother and sister were fine. Going back to when I was 2, I was sledding with my mom. She maybe wasn't paying close enough attention, which is fine. And my foot, I think it was my right foot, was sticking out the front of the sled, and she was behind me in the sled, and we slid down the hill and slammed straight into a tree, and my leg snapped. And I had a cast, and that was at age 2. And I didn't have pain, but if they had tried to get me to stand, that's when I cried and had pain. There were many other instances, but around that same time period, just before I got the stitches, they had already scheduled an appointment for me to have surgery to have my adenoids removed. Now, the reason for that in surgery, it seems like it was completely unnecessary surgery, but apparently I was snoring a lot at the time. I think my first grade teacher thought that I was having a hard time hearing. I was I remember daydreaming. I remember not being interested about some of the things that she was talking about. I would be in my own world, basically, creating my own reality that was more interesting than whatever I was being told. Her perspective, maybe she thought I couldn't hear. So that happened right around that same age of 6. Right around that same time, that was winter of 1988. My parents had become divorced, which was a very difficult time for me. My world split into mom's house and dad's house, and it became like 2 lives, 2 realities. And so it was a lot of changes happening at that time in my life at age 6, 1988, first grade, the winter of first grade especially, everything shifting. It was actually Thanksgiving of 1988 where I developed a fear of throwing up, vomiting, puking, whatever you want to call it. I guess had an ear infection, and at the time, I'm not sure if it's still true, but they would give children this pink bubblegum flavored medicine, but you were supposed to make sure that the person or the child ate food when they took the medicine. And with everything going on, my parents breaking up and all of the things in their mind, my mom gave me the medicine, but she forgot to give me food. And as we were heading to our friend's really wonderful family, their house for Thanksgiving, before leaving, I started to feel nauseous. There was a family friend there. I asked for a cup of water. He forgot to let the water run and gave me this warm water that just made my nausea worse. And I was sort of just trying to deal with it the best I could without really anyone knowing what was going on. So we got to our friend's house, family friends, ate this wonderful Thanksgiving dinner, delicious. I always love Thanksgiving. And then go up into the room of their daughter and basically throw up all over her floor. And her mother comes in and basically gets angry at me for throwing up for whatever reason. I'm just a child at that moment, of course, who was sick and needed to throw up, my body taking care of itself. But at that point, I developed a phobia of throwing up. Something that felt like, oh, I can't control my body, and this is something my body's doing that's not appropriate. And I would literally make myself sick with worry that I was going to throw up. And I would sit there and be searching for any sign of feeling ill. And I remember my dad trying to tell me, what's the matter? I didn't want to go to school, he was trying to urge me to get through it and get past it. And I think eventually I reluctantly agreed to go back to school, I'm sure, after a few days. But at that point, for years, I would be terrified of getting sick. And if anyone, my siblings, were getting sick around me, I would be mortified. I would be concerned that I was going to get sick, that I was going to throw up. Basically became sort of a war with my body internally. Probably developed a lot of gastrointestinal issues as a result, which is all being healed now. I'm totally fine, healthier than I've ever been in my entire life. So anyway, that's just a little bit about who I am and where I came from. I'm happy to share more details. My goal is to be completely transparent with the world so that any information I shared, if anyone is, who is she, where does she come from, just ask me. I'm happy to share anything about who I am, my background, and where I came from, and who I am as a person and why I'm here. I have nothing to hide. I am naked to the world. We are all naked to the world all the time. There is no hiding anything from anyone. Everything is seen in such a wonderful way because on a fundamental level, we are all consciousness. So, hope that you enjoyed. If not, no need to watch. I feel this is a first in a series of videos about various topics, but some of the videos I hope will explain who I am and my background so that there's full transparency and that anything I share along the lines of physics an important physics formula that needs to be shared with the world and the implications for humanity, and other information related to sacred geometry and this beautiful crystalline structures all around us in every moment. And if people want to know who I am and where I came from, that I create this content to assist them with that. But this is not about me. I am irrelevant in this, okay? I do not matter. I am a speck of dust in the scheme of things. Everyone is. Everything in this world is impermanent. Anything I share and say about myself is only in an attempt to help those who care at all, to want to know who I am and where I came from, to help them have that information. But this is not about me. This is about assisting the planet, assisting humanity to rise up from the shackles of bondage, the shackles of slavery. So again, my name is Hannah Elliott Spence. I was born on June 7th, 1982 at 2:14 p.m. in European time, 14:14. I have nothing to hide. Okay, sending love and gratitude. Thank you to anyone for caring at all about what I have to say and share, but I remind you, this is not about me. I'm completely irrelevant in this. This is about freedom for humanity. This is about healing the planet, helping Earth rise up to a higher frequency. This is about a shared collective journey for those who want to be a part of assisting one another, working together as a team, coming together in a time where the division is greater than ever. Those of us who want to unify can and will find each other and work hard to spread the truth. Thank you very much for being here on the planet in this time. This is a historical moment for humanity, and it is truly an incredible time to be alive. I hope in your hearts that you know that and believe that. Thank you so much. Sending love, and talk soon.